before we start our carving, we really want to have a very close look at our model. It's an interesting sort of shape, and the things you want to notice are how the bill here at the front is above, there's a space here, and that this curves back and actually goes underneath the side here. You've got the center button here. I've tucked the strap underneath, but that's going to be again tucked underneath, so there's a degree of tucking underneath like that. So have a look around. You've got seams here, we've got these little air vents which we'll try and stress, and then when we've sort of got an overall look at it, you want to start looking at the high spots. In other words, we've got to get this model into this wood, and there's some of this wood we can leave right at the start. For example, right now I said that it was more or less the same height, so I know that on this wood will be high spots, a high spot around here. So this is a big flat area there. I'm putting it across here. So I've got a little fold there and a little depression in the middle. Then this crease comes down here, down to this seam here. I've got another one, the seam here, but the main crease goes over there. Do you notice? It comes right back here. So what I want to do is just simplify some of these main creases. So I'm not interested in all this little bit, but just this little crease here. Here's a little crease where the bill goes underneath. I've got a crease here, I've got a nice sort of depression in that bit. Around here, it looks very complicated, but there's a sort of Z type crease going on here. There's another one comes down here like this. So these are the main folds of the hat. There's a little bit, there's some over here, big depression in there, another little fold here, little dividing fold. So if you go around and mark some of these, you get a sense of how this hat is going to work. Now the one thing to say about these folds, in a way, they mark high spots. In other words, we'll get to the wood to here and we won't take any more wood away. So one way of thinking about this is if I put this cling film or cling wrap over it, like this, if you can imagine that if we make a block of wood that connects all these high spots together, then from that point we're hollowing away in here. So the first thing we need to do is really create this overall shape, which is the Bosting in, and then we can start dividing. So having made some sort of assessment of that, we can also do a little bit of measuring, because we're going to make a pretty similar sort of model. One way we can measure is we can get a piece of square card like this, and we could draw off immediately here. We'll know the height, whatever that will be, of where the end of the bill is here. Then that is transferable to where the end of the bill will be here somewhere. I'll need to do this properly. Similarly, if we want to get into here and measure that, we can use the same card and something like a square, and we can come down and we can mark off that point. There's another very important point. This is a junction here where the bill comes up at an angle and meets the top here. So this is going to be one of our first points that we'll mark in. So we can make a few measurements even from the front of the hat right across to the button here. We can mark these things in, so we can make a few measurements onto our wood. And lastly, I think one thing worth doing is finding a centre line. Now without doubt this hat is symmetrical, so there'll be a centre line here, and my eye tells me it goes down to there. So here's a centre line. I can draw this here. So this centre line comes up here, but it also comes through here. Oops. Goes up like that. Not very accurate there, sorry, but there's the centre line coming up, so you can see that the button is a little bit to one side. So that centre line will help us get this bill symmetrical. Okay, so have a look at that, and then you can transfer a few of these markings here, especially this point and this point, to the wood. The first thing I marked was this flat high spot here. That's as best I can. Doesn't have to be dead accurate, but that's definitely wood we're not going to be removing. Now I'm going to start at the bill end here, and we can remove some big chunks of wood. The first thing I marked was the distance, or rather this point here on the wood. So there, that's the edge of this bill here. I can also have found this point here. There's my halfway, as best I can judge it. Yep, and I found it by marking through, marking down, and it's about here, although it's inside the wood. So I know for a start that I can take off this big chunk of wood here before I start working on anything else. So I'm going to do that first. Take that wood away, and the way I'm going to do it is quite brutally with my saw. So I'm going to go across the grain. I'm going to stop a little bit short both sides, and at this stage I'm going to give myself lots of room to play with. So having made one cut, I'm going to make a second cut here, and a third cut here, and a fourth cut possibly there. Now I've got the saw cuts, what I can do, because they're all across the grain, is I can just knock this off. There is nothing to stop you, by the way, sawing like this. You could saw this way, but this is quite a quick way of removing wood. This is interesting. See how that is heading down into the wood? That's because the knot is taking it. So what I have to be careful here of is not to go into wood that I want. So I'll just go a little bit carefully. We're okay on this side. So then I'll just clean this up. Whoops. Just tighten that up. Clean this up. And we've got down to our first level. So what I'm interested in here is actually this point there, which is this point here. This is a very good point as a point of reference, because everything is coming to this point on the front part of the cap. So I'll clean this up and then we'll move on to taking off some more. I think you can see now where we are. There's the bill coming to the point there. What I'm going to do now is come down this slope here. Now I know I've got a high spot here, so on my wood I'm going to start roughly there on the high spot, and we're going to come down that plane pretty much in a straight line. If I look at it straight on like this, it's actually tilted, so this is lower, is further back than this. So this is the sort of shape I want. And it's not square, it's not straight, it's actually curving like that. So really look at that, see what that shape is, and then we're going to work it into there. So basically we'll take a gouge and we'll start going downhill like this from the high spot. And all this wood on the corner obviously isn't there at all, so all this corner wood can come away as well. You can see that the knot has completely disappeared. We've cut that right out, down to really nice wood. Now be careful not to dig into the bill here. This is, I will be cutting this back, but this will be, it's nearly at the finished surface. Have a look at my model, get a sense of what's going on here. If I look at my model, the point here that at the junction between the bill and the cap itself is a bit lower than what I've got here. That's a good thing, because by the time I've played around and messed around, that's going to lose a bit of wood anyway. So I'm keeping everything what I call a little bit fat, a little bit fuller. So having done the first part, I'm going to carry along the length of the hat, and we're going to do something at the back here. So this again, you can see it's quite a distinct slope. But looking at the end, this is cut more, there's a bit of a rise here, this is cut down here. So really I'm looking at this point, this sort of the bigger picture for the moment there. I've marked here a point after which it starts, the hat starts curling under. I've marked that here. So this line is where I'm going to go down to, and at some point in the future I will be curling under. So mark that line, and we've got our high spots on the top here, especially where the button is. This is really the button area that we're going down. And keep looking at the hat, keep looking at the cap, and just quietly start taking this off in the same sort of way. I mean, just to mention this, for example, this strap here is actually right down there, so you know all this wood is going to come away. So, big picture. So that'll do for now. That gives us a sense of coming up and over like that. What we have to do now is turn to the sides and move that into there. And with that, the hat will get a lot more hat-like shape.